Okay, for those who may have never used one, this is a laser transit, or laser, and it's for surveying. And I'm not a professional or trained surveyor. I'm using just extremely rudimentary use of this thing. So what I did was, at the very beginning, you saw me stand up close to one of the beds and kind of look at the camera and point. That's my reference point. The laser itself is down there next to the truck on a tripod, and it's just spinning around, and it doesn't move. It's perfectly level, auto levels, and spinning around. Now I took that first point and I took my stick, and it's got a receiver on it, laser receiver, and you may hear some beeping. And I put the center of the level, so this little mark right here, at that level. And it was right about here, about 5'2" is about where it was. So I wanted to go down 6 inches lower than that. So for me to go 6 inches down and this to be okay, I had to raise this 6 inches. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So 6 plus 2 is 8. So I got to 8. And then what you do is you walk around and you listen for it to beep. It'll beep fast when you're below it. It'll beep slow when you're above it and you need to go lower in the landscape. And it'll do a solid tone when you're right on level. And we're not trying to be perfect. This got a receiver on the front, the side, the back, so it really doesn't matter. But if I raise this up, at some point, you'll probably hear it start beeping. Or not. Okay, there it is. Okay, that high beep means I need to go down. So I'm gonna go down. Actually, I need to go up. I always get that backwards. High means I need to go up, so I'll raise it. You hear a solid tone. That's on level. When I go up more, it's slow. So I'm looking for that solid tone. So now that I've done that, every time I found a spot that was at that 6-inch level mark, I just needed something to mark, so I just put a pile of the wood chips. So if we follow these wood chips, you can kind of see that all of those are on level. All of those are level. So that is where I'm gonna put my swale, or in rice field parlance, it would have been a levee. But that kind of gives me the rough line, and I'm not gonna do this. I'm just gonna make a line. And the purpose of the swale with the berm on the down the outside is when it rains, any water that comes off on the surface, it stops it, it slows it down. So it slows it down, spreads it out, and sinks it in. The goal is to not have water running off the landscape. It needs to soak in. So between doing that and adding the mulch, we can get to where we have absolute minimal irrigation, possibly no irrigation, depending on the weather next year and what we plant. Now, a swale, unlike a levee, besides being there on contour to slow it down, spread it out, and sink it in, it is a tree planting system. So to fully do an actual swale, we need to come back and plant some kind of tree, preferably a productive tree, on the top of the swale. Because that's going to be, because what I'm going to do is I'm going to be taking topsoil from over here, flipping it over. I'm not going to do like I did up here and do it from both sides. It's only from the uphill side going down, making kind of that ditch, that on contour swale. But that's going to be more topsoil in that berm. That's going to be a great place to grow anything, but specifically trees. Plus, if it's capturing water and it's sinking in right underneath that, then that's going to be a good source of water to get those trees established. Now, We're not going to do standard size trees. We don't have 5-10 years for it to produce. What I'm hoping is to put in dwarf or semi-dwarf fruit trees and espalier them. So we have the function, but we also make it ornamental and pretty at the same time. Plus, in doing espalier, the more of the limbs that are horizontal or slightly below horizontal, the faster they will and better they will produce. They'll actually produce fruit earlier on a horizontal stem than one that is vertical or up at a 45. And according to Stefan Kobiek and others he's learned from, when the limbs are slightly below horizontal, you tend not to get as many of the suckers coming off the top that you need to prune off, so you actually reduce some of your workload on that. So let me put some of this up, see if I can get that Grillo started, and see if I can start making this burn. Okay, let's see how I did. So I've done my trench, and basically I just started right here and I just made several passes moving over, and then I went back to the first and just kind of threw the dirt up there, tried to rake a lot of the grass out of there. Now the question is, how level did I get the bottom of this? It's not going to be perfect, but it should be pretty close. So what I've done, turn my laser back on, turn this on, and right down in the middle I set it, you hear the beeping, so slow beeping. Let's see if I can do this. Slow beeping is too high, fast beeping I'm too low. So I'm just leaning back, which lowers the receiver. So if I lean back, it lowers the receiver, and I lean forward, so I'm sit on the ground, and then I'm just gonna go, I'm just going from point to point. I'm just gonna go point to point and see, can I get that solid tone or pretty close to it with the base of this on the ground. So it's fast, so I raise the stick up, I get a solid tone at what, 1/4 to 1/2 inch. That's how accurate that is right there. And this is just being raked. So I'm right there. It's going slow, so I'm a little bit high. So I'm going to lean the stick back, which lowers the receiver just barely. So I'm pretty close. So what this ultimately means is, if we have a rain event that with enough rain that water is running off the top and starting to go downhill, it will hit that ditch, that swale, and it will spread out along it on contour. It won't just run off like a ditch. A ditch looks like this, but it has a downward slope to it with the purpose of running the water and removing the water from the landscape. I don't want to remove the water from the landscape. I want to hold it and sink it in. The more that I can sink in, the less irrigating we have to do. Now then, if we were in an area that was swampy and had too much water, then yes, we'd use the same thing with a slope and run the water off to dry the land out. But in this area, we don't have too much rain. We really don't have too little. We've got a good amount, 50 to 51 inches of rain on average every year, fairly well spread out. I mean, sometimes we will have about anywhere from a couple of weeks to 6 weeks, June, July, August, somewhere where we may not have any rain. But if we have hydrated this soil, if we have soaked it in, there should be enough in the soil, especially down deep, that we shouldn't have to irrigate or irrigate very much. And then along with controlling the movement of the water, for it to soak in, it's got to perk well, so it can't have too much clay, be too hard, and there needs to be something to absorb it and hold it, and that is organic matter. So that's why we keep doing the mulching. That's why we try to keep living roots, and we try to build the organic material not only as a nutrient and to feed the life in the soil, but organic matter. For every 1% of organic matter that we can raise in the soil, so when you get your soil test, if it's the one that does organic matter calculations, for every 1% we can raise that from 2 to 3%, from 3 to 4%, whatever. The soil will hold about 20,000 gallons more per acre. So let me say that again. That your organic matter content in the soil, regardless of what it is, for every 1% you can raise that per acre, you can hold an extra 20,000 gallons per acre. That's about an Olympic swimming pool that is there waiting for your plants to use it, that was delivered to you for free via the rain, non-contaminated, and that you didn't have to pay for it. So that is why when I start working on a property, a garden, anything like that, and part of the reason why this was kind of slow this year, the first thing you get control of is water. Make sure you have water, make sure you can hold the water, make sure you can use the water, preferably more than one time. So yes, this is still a continuation of the first year project here of trying to manage, capture, and hold water so we don't have to irrigate. This was not surveyed. I just made circles real quick, and it did good. It didn't, you know, wasn't perfect, but I didn't really have time to do the full surveying and everything. I'm not sure how it would look. This way, at least people like the way it looks. But first, water, then access, which we have, so that was already done, then structures, and you go from there. So for the garden, we already had access, water. Now that we've got a good handle on water for this part of it, this next year, hopefully, we can plant a lot more and have a lot more ready to harvest, be a lot more abundant and stuff. But with the limited resources we've had, mostly manpower, there's only so much we could do. Plus we got started in February or March rather than in September of the previous year. So infrastructure year one and continuing to expand, then getting a baseline on the soil with soil test. I'm doing that twice a year. Starting to build that soil, and then second year we should have more plants, more production, hopefully more harvest. And then the goal is every year we get more harvest and the soil gets better, not worse. It gets richer, it gets more organic, it gets more friable, it has more crumb structure, it holds more water, it perks faster, so that we can get a 2-inch rain, and as soon as it stops, we can be working in the garden rather than having to wait 2 days for it to dry out, and then 5 days after the rain we're having to irrigate. With enough organic material and mulch, any weeds are easy to pull up. As soon as it stops raining, we can get right back out here, and we hopefully can go a week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks or longer without having to irrigate. That's the plan. It's not a quick plan. This is not just get up, plant some stuff, and spend the rest of the summer weeding, feeding. As I heard one of the extension agents at one of the meetings say, that's what we do as gardens. We water and we weed. And I'm like, no. What we should be doing as gardeners is building soil and growing. If we're having to water and weed, we're probably doing something wrong. Anyway, getting out from behind off my soapbox and out from behind my pulpit. So now I'm going to start taking cardboard, laying that out on the grass, taking mulch to hold that down. And if everything works out, tomorrow I will come back and I'll put 1 or 2 layers of heavy black plastic over this, and then use the mulch to hold it down. That will keep this from the weeds from coming up. And if I really want, I need to measure this. If I really want to be on top of it, shouldn't need it. But I could put a soaker hose down and then put the plastic down. That way, if we do need to irrigate, we can irrigate under the plastic without having to raise it up. But we really shouldn't need to, because we have the swale here. I'm probably not going to do a soaker hose. If this works, and it should work right, I'm going to bet on that it's going to work. And water comes in here, it will soak in here, which will be available to whatever's planted here. And my goal is to have fruit trees on this one, dwarf or semi-dwarf fruit trees that are espalier. But we'll see if that happens. So let me get to work on this. It's about 3 o'clock, and I think I've done about what I can do today. Got this swale done. Used about half that pile of wood chips. Got about half of the grassy area here covered with 1 or 2 layers of cardboard and those wood chips. Let's see if I can finish it tomorrow if I'm able to get out here. Still need to bring the black plastic, put over the berm. There were 2 piles of cardboard boxes. Used almost 1 whole pile. Dale turned, mixed all up. This bed, watered it. He's gonna, I think, cover it in the next couple of days. Watered the lettuce and the carrots a couple more times, trying to keep them coming up. And I put about 2 5-gallon buckets of chicken litter on top of the compost pile and watered it in real good. So that's what got done today.